So trigonometry is simply actually a topic that deals with angles. So it deals with angles and also sides. Deals with angles and sides, which in total makes up you are dealing with a triangle. So trigonometry is a topic which concerns angles and the sides of a triangle. So now with that said, trigonometry can be solved if we actually divide it in two kinds of categories. So the first category that we actually look at is types of trigonometry. This means that there is only one trigonometry that we need to understand, but the way we get to solve this trigonometry is that we solve it in two types. Okay, so the first type is what we'll look at today, and of course I believe we will be able to finish it. If that will be okay, we'll be able to finish it. So the first one is trigonometry can be solved using this concept. We assume that the triangle that we are dealing with is a right-angled triangle, and then also there are circumstances or situations where you are dealing with a triangle which is not a right-angled triangle but a non-right-angled triangle. So non-right angle triangle, non-right angle. Okay, so this means that you can also have a challenge or a question about trigonometry where a triangle that you're dealing with is not a right angle triangle. So in this case, you'll be dealing with a triangle whose angle is not 90 degrees. Okay, so therefore you have got to differentiate between which triangle are you dealing with. For instance, are you dealing with a right angle triangle or the non-right angle triangle? So for our first video today, we'll just focus on the right angle triangle, and then tomorrow at the same time we'll finish up to right angle triangle. Okay, so welcome back. So now we mentioned that we've got a right angle triangle. So what you're supposed to understand is this is an example of how a triangle, a right angle triangle, looks like. So when you want to understand how can you identify to say this is a way I'm going to solve this question, or if this is a triangle, how do you go about solving the problems or providing answers to that kind of a solution, to the problem. So you can see right on the board here that the diagram that I've drawn is a triangle, and I'm sure each one of us knows that a triangle has got three sides. So you have this one, and this one. So now what actually means is that for us to identify that this is a right angle triangle, then this line and this line, they make a proper kind of an angle called a 90 degree. So therefore, whichever questions you come across, as long as it's trigonometry, and then the triangle actually shows that there is a sign, or rather a symbol like this one, which represents a 90 degree angle. So therefore, it's not the question of memorizing, but you get to know how to go about solving using trigonometrical kind of methods to solve for a right angle triangle. So all you're supposed to do is to understand what a right angle triangle is, and then after that we'll dive into what are some of the formulas that you can use to solve the problem concerning trigonometry. So therefore, you have to be so actually clear that you understand what a right angle triangle is. If you don't understand, then it will be actually a waste of time to start. You can start afresh, you can finish again, start minus understanding. So the first thing that you've got to do is you understand what a right angle triangle is. So a right angle triangle has got a 90 degree between these two lines, which we call perpendicular lines. So this is an angle, a 90 degree angle. So therefore, we are saying that trigonometry deals with the relationship between angles and sides of a triangle. So this is the same over here. We have got sides and then angles inside. So we have A, B, C. We can just name them the way we want, or whatever you feel like. You can use any letters of the alphabet. But for the sake of simplicity, we'll take them to A, B, C. Therefore, once you understand, so there are some of these are the ratios that you need to understand. So the basic trigonometrical ratios that you ought to know are: the first one is the cosine, the second one is the sine, then the last one, which is the tangent, or if you want to give it a shortcut name, just call it the tan. Now, how does these three ratios apply to the sides of a triangle? Okay, so each of these three ratios that I've just written down, they have got the corresponding sides that is involved. Okay, so from the knowledge of grade 9, we also understand that in a right angle triangle we have what is known as an hypotenuse. Okay, a longest side in the triangle, which is this side. So regardless of how the diagram might be drawn, but as long as you see the longest side in the triangle, and that's an hypotenuse, so you can label it for the sake of avoiding confusion, or you can just write it as hypotenuse. Okay, so therefore all these the cosine, the sine and tangent can be now combined to form one thing, which we also know that we call it, we can call it a SOHCAHTOA, which is that SOHCAHTOA. So in this SOHCAHTOA, we can divide these the abbreviations into three categories. So the SOH, this one is for sine. The CAH, this one is for cos. TOA, this one is for tan. Okay, so now after we understand that we have got three ratios, and then we know that there is the sine, the cosine and the tan. So what are the sides that corresponds to these ratios? So for the sine, we have the opposite side, opposite, and the hypotenuse. The opposite and hypotenuse. The cosine also have the adjacent side and the hypotenuse. And then the tan, we also have the opposite as well as the adjacent. So now what it simply means is that in these ratios, the cosine represent an angle, the sine represent an angle, the tangent represent an angle. So you can see from the diagram we have got 60. So this 60 can be sine, can be tan, it can be cos. But this same 60, it has actually a corresponding side. Okay, it can either be this side correspond to that side, which we are calling the remaining side is automatically the adjacent. So this is how you get to assign the angle and its relationship to the side. So this 60, I'm repeating again, this 60 correspond, or it is facing in this side is automatically the opposite. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, now in conclusion, to understand whatever that we have talked about, the cosine, the sine, and then the tangent, and their corresponding side, then what we're supposed to do is, now how do you know that I'm supposed to use the cosine, or how do you know that I'm supposed to use the sine or the tangent? Now here's the thing, that the first procedure, or the idea about how you should go about which ratio should be applied to which question. So the answer to that actually is not dependent on to which ratio, but you've got to figure out what am I given in the diagram, or what is known in the diagram. Okay, so that's the first principle and basic idea that we need to have. Otherwise, if you don't have that principal idea, then we'll be just wondering where to start from, and what are we supposed to, how do we solve the question if we don't understand what are the values that we are being given by the examiner. So the examiner, all they want is, they want to see how you can think, not they don't want to see what you have learned, but what you can think. Length. So now here is the question, or rather the example to this primary diagram that we drew. So the first thing is that the question is saying calculate the distance and find the angle A. So the question is saying the distance AC, okay? And I mentioned to say this distance AC, as you can see in the diagram, it is still the longest side in the diagram. Therefore, this is an hypotenuse, and then I've been given an angle which is 60 degrees Celsius. I mean, so not Celsius, just 60 degrees. And then I said that the first idea is to understand what you have been given. So I've been given 2 centimeters as well as 60 degrees. So when you look at this angle on this side, you find that the angle 60 is facing in that direction. So when it is facing in that direction, there is nothing there, there is no value. So probably the opposite of this angle 60, or rather angle C to be more specific, is actually will not work because there is no value there. So what is known is that the examiner has given me the hypotenuse, meaning to find the hypotenuse, which is AC, because that's the longest side in the triangle, right angle triangle, its hypotenuse. And then I've been given an angle 60 degrees. So I'm looking for the hypotenuse. And then the other thing that I know is this value, which is 2 centimeters. And the 2 centimeters actually is the distance between B and C. So get to label that. Now, therefore, when you have been given this kind of a scenario, and looking at the question and the diagram, and you ask yourself, which one am I going to use? Which ratio? Is it the sine? Is it the tan? Or is it the cosine? So what you're supposed to understand is, first of all, get to the basics of what is in the diagram and what the examiner have asked you to calculate, or rather to solve for. So I'm solving for the hypotenuse. So if I was to use the tan, then you find that the tan of that angle equals to opposite over adjacent. Now you realize that the opposite of this angle does not exist in our triangle. So therefore, this one is ruled out. Okay? Then if you go to the sine, say sine theta, this symbol can be anything. Since this is represent an angle, so if you want it to be a simple representation, you can just say sine C, because that's the angle that you have. Okay? So sine C equals to, we said that the sine ratio has got these three letters. So opposite, hypotenuse. So it is got opposite, hypotenuse. And then finally, the cosine. The cos C, if you want cos C or just cos theta, then you find that cos of this angle C, which is 60, equals to the what? Adjacent over hypotenuse. Now, when you look at these three angles, or rather the specific formulas for each ratio, you find that this is not going to work, because I don't have the opposite, and I'm also calculating the hypotenuse. So the hypotenuse is what I'm calculating, and I don't have the opposite. Then it will not work. Okay, it will not work. So the only possibility, or the only possible ratio that can give us a solution to the problem is using the cosine ratio. Because when you look at the cosine ratio, you find that it has got the hypotenuse and the angle there, which you are calling cos C, and then the adjacent, which is this angle. So the adjacent is the side next, or the side nearer to the angle given. Okay? So you've got to understand all these are basic principles. For you, trigonometry is very simple. So don't actually make it difficult when it is not difficult. So the first step is to ask yourself what is given and what is in the diagram. What is the examiner asking you to calculate? And just once you table out those issues, then you are home and dry to be able to solve the question. So now finally, we are going to use the cosine to solve, to provide the solution to this question. Okay, so therefore cos C equals to adjacent over hypotenuse. Now this is angle C, so that's 60 there. So you say cos 60 equals to adjacent. The adjacent is the side nearer to the angle, so automatically 2 centimeter represent the adjacent. Or if you want, you can say the adjacent is BC over the hypotenuse is represented by the letters in the diagram as AC. Therefore, since I'm looking for AC, we are going to make AC the subject of a formula. So this will be over 1, then you cross multiply, then you have BC equals to cos C times AC. Now I'm looking for this AC, so I need to remove the cos C by dividing both sides of the equation with the cos C over cos C. And then this and this goes. Therefore, AC equals to BC over cos C. Therefore, what is your BC? So your BC equals to 2 centimeter. And then your cos, your angle C equals to cos 60. When you get your calculator, you find that cos 60 equals to 0.5 for the sake of simplicity. So you have 2 centimeter over 0.5. And then the last thing that I want to emphasize is that you have got to be careful with the units. Remember, we are looking for AC. So meaning AC is a distance. So distance has got units, centimeter, meters, kilometer, whatsoever problem. But the thing is, be careful with the units. So our final answer will remain in centimeters because AC is a distance, which is an hypotenuse. So therefore, our final answer in meters. Okay. Now you find that when this divides into that, you get almost, I think when you do proper, if the calculation you can consult, or if I'm wrong, you can correct that, but should give you 4 centimeters. So that's how easy it is to actually solve trigonometric questions or problems. And then finally, the question is saying, and find angle A. So that's simple because finding angle A does not require you to use the trigonometrical formulas, or rather the ratios. But all you have to do is just use a simple idea that we all know we used to solve in the date. Okay, so what is that idea? So the idea is so finding this angle A is simple as understanding that when you add all the angles in a triangle, they should give you 180. So therefore, you are going to say 60 plus 90 angle is formed by 2 sides, where in between there is an angle called a 90 degree by default, by definition. So what you need to understand is this angle A plus angle 90 plus angle 60 equals to 180. Therefore, you can make this A the subject of formula because that's what you're looking for. So when you make A the subject, A meaning everything goes to the other side. Ladies and gentlemen, before we wrap up this session, ideally, I'm sure you have gotten the concept of trigonometry, but this is just the thing behind the trigonometry. So, like I was saying, when you want to find the angle A, this is the angle A. That's the position of angle A. So now, what we're supposed to do is we all understand that when you add up all the angles in the triangle, okay, when you add up all those numbers, those numbers should actually sum to 180. That's the concept behind the summation of angles in a triangle. Okay, so that's kind of the idea or analogy that you're going to use. Therefore, you're saying that sum, meaning everything when you add them, gets 180, and then kind of provide the formula to the examiner. The examiner, they are interested in how are you showing up your work, because work showing in final exam is also actually an essential part to impress the examiner, and of course gives you more marks, or rather just gives an impression to the examiner to say this person actually really knows what he or she is doing. So therefore, you say angle A, and by the way, this symbol means angle. It simply stands for angle. Okay? Yeah, so we'll get into the details of the meaning of the mathematical symbols, but for now, just understand that this symbol actually means an angle A. Okay, so angle A plus 90 degree, which is the angle over here, and then angle 60, which is the given angle. So therefore, once we add everything, then we get 180. I'm sure we are getting the point. Therefore, so 90 plus 60, you get 150. So this gives you 150. So now, where is the negative coming from? So 90 plus 60, you get 150. Okay. Now you get that 150, you cross it over to the right hand side. Okay, meaning the way we used to do equation with the date. I'm sure you remember. If you don't, please don't worry. We'll come and explain more about equations and stuff like that. But for now, just know that 90 plus 60 is 150, and then you take it to the other side. Okay, and then once it goes to the other side, it changes the sign. Okay, so that's why it is negative. So 180 plus 150, you get 30 degrees. So therefore, angle A equals to 30 degrees. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, this is our introductory to mathematics, and probably starting with one of the most claimed to be difficult topic, which is trigonometry. But I can assure you, if you just put more effort, regardless of the distance where you are, northern province, southern province, Lusaka, Cover Belt, all I want you to understand is that I'm here to help you.